Hello, welcome to the Stacking Dinger Show, your place for all things Underdog, MLB best ball. I'm your host tonight, Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep. You can find me on Twitter at D4RKSH33P underscore. The regular Dark Sheep name has not yet come available. And I am joined by Nez at Nez Takes. You can find him, at Nez Takes on
At
Twitter.
Neztakes for
Yep.
those spelling at home.
And of course, all the time, most weekdays or somewhere streaming best ball daily, whatever. You can find them all over the place on Badge Bros on YouTube. And what is the off and on the clock account?
It's still Badge Bros. Yeah, it's all on Badge Bros. If you go youtube.com/@Badge Bros, you'll find us there streaming every day, all the sports, everything, including daily baseball slates if you're into that. But yeah, it's been a while since we did one of these.
Yeah, this show has been on a brief hiatus. I've been enjoying my summer and not doing too much streaming. I have not dived deep into the football streets, so that's kind of been nice. I haven't felt the need to try and stream any football content because I don't know what I can add to that conversation. That's a different topic, but that conversation has really grown this year.
It certainly has.
Yeah. So, but we're talking baseball tonight. We're a week late. We wanted to record this last week, but I got my allergies acted up, and I was in no mood for speaking at night anytime. So we're a week late on advancement, but we are going to be talking regular season advancement and the beginning of the playoffs. We'll just sort of try and blank out the first week of playoffs that's already occurred. But I'm sure we'll have some comments here and there about that. But yeah, first of all, Nez, how do you feel at this point for about baseball?
Yeah, it was a fun season for sure. I did a lot of the dailies on Underdog as well, so it was very much in tune with the swing of things and who was performing well and who really wasn't and who I was waiting to kind of pop off. And when you're in tune with that and then you compare it with your exposures, you're like, oh man, I was very I was, I had a lot of strong stances, and I'm okay with them in hindsight. But it's you forget how quickly things can change and how quickly your opinions change once there's actual baseball to be played. And I took some big swings at the end of drafts in rounds 19 and 20 for the most part, even as early as 18. So I'm thankfully not really feeling the strong effects of those misses. I'm actually enjoying some of the success of Matt Wallner, who was a zero for the entire regular season. Still waiting on Henry Davis to get a call up. And then Skeens is another one that I took a lot of swings on, who's performing well. But another one is Sal Frelick, who isn't really doing much of anything, but found his way on to over half of my Dinger playoff teams. So maybe that says more about the teams I was drafting him on than him himself, obviously. But yeah, I think, just kind of thinking about the playoffs as a whole, and it's very apt because I am drafting NFL right now. And it's just so funny how things just get thrown out the window once it's playoff time. When it's playoff time, nothing matters. You have zero all season in Jackson Holiday right now, for example, and he is one of the highest scoring players in the playoffs right now for best ball. It just, in my opinion, really just puts into perspective what we're trying to accomplish in these drafts, and I always have this aha moment. I feel like every year.
Yeah, for sure. I was speaking of Henry Davis. I just happened to be watching Pirates play the other day, and there's a play at home plate, and Yasmani Grandal got knocked in the wrist. I was like, "Oh man, is it time? Is it time?" He was on the ground in pain, and I was like, "It's time. He's coming back." Oh no.
And he was fine. Unfortunately,
fine.
I mean, I don't want to wish ill will on anybody, but yeah, I could have used a little Henry Davis in my life for my best ball portfolio and just for my Pirates fandom. I would much prefer to see Henry Davis over Yasmani Grandal play baseball for the Pirates.
It's just funny how your viewing of baseball skews when you play this game, just because that was the first thing I thought of. Obviously, well, first thing is I forget that Yasmani Grandal on the Pirates,
Unfortunately.
but I guess one of those leader. I don't know, whatever. We don't need to get into that, but yeah, for me, you know the big miss. We got to get into. We got to talk Ellie.
Hmm.
You know, if you go back and watch her content, we were definitely he was a polarizing player all draft season.
Yeah.
DFS started DFS season. The Roto people, like there was people on both sides. I know you started off and then sort of accepted him at some point
Hmm.
in your life. If you listen to a lot of baseball content, the person that surprised me the most was Eno was high on him, and
Hmm.
he really seemed like someone in the strikeout and chase rate kind of data that like Saris would be not into. But that was when I started. That was the first person I heard that was like pro Ellie, and I'm like starting to already regret
Hmm.
draft season. Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, like latching onto that. Ultimately, it comes down to he made the improvement that he needed to.
Hmm.
You know, there was, or I made an effort in, like in Jackson Trio, and I didn't get too into Jackson Holiday, but Wyatt Langford, I made a more of a push this year to look at the upside of these young guys than the failure case. But maybe I'm still going through my own emotions and my ego about it, about
Right.
how right or wrong was the mostly Ellie fade for me. But regardless of where I land on that, he showed what people believed in.
Yeah, he's awesome for best ball. I think that's really like what it comes down to is I mean, and he's just awesome for baseball too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's electric, right? He's gonna probably pass 70 stolen bases this season. Um 30 home runs would be a bit of a stretch, but slugging 500, 130 WRC plus, like he's exceeded expectations, which they were already very high for him. Um, looking back on it, like I obviously regret not having a ton of Ellie, right? Like that's a no brainer. Like who wouldn't want all the Ellie at his price? He was one of the best clicks in on the board this season. So of course I regret it, but thinking about the process behind it, I mean, he didn't. His total sample in 2023 was just like it had concerns. Like I think that I was warranted and like not being as excited about him as everybody else was in like in the underdog best ball community, at least in an online sense. But yeah, that was regretful. And now if I want him next year, I'm gonna have to pay a first rounder for him, which I can't imagine wanting to be off somebody like Ellie who can just break a format in these playoff weeks.
yeah. We saw, going into the mid-season contest, a shift in that first round. How Ellie, Bobby Witt, these guys pushed up past some of the outfielders that we were taking ahead of almost every infielder. So it should be interesting next year to see where ADPs come in at on some of these infielders that just put up massive point totals in the regular season, and compared to how we started drafts off. And I mean, for the most of the whole draft season, we had that group of 10 outfielders that we were taking pretty high over everybody.
Yeah, I can't imagine that that's going to change much really as far as the outfield like thirst that existed. I think that'll definitely carry over. Um, but some of these infielders just showed such a ceiling that I think we're going to be okay prioritizing these high ceiling infielders, which I think would make sense. The Bobby Witts, Gunnar Henderson, um, Ellie, just to name a few. Mookie will be up there as well. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, for a while there, For the month of May, though, like Ellie definitely looked like he might be like coming down to earth in a big way. Like in the month of May, he hit 200 with a 287 slug and a 65 WRC plus. Like it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine for Ellie this season, but that month of May was really the only negative thing you can say about him. I mean, he didn't have a great first week of playoffs, but he's having a good second week. So there's no we still have 4 more playoff weeks, 4 individual scoring periods left where, anybody can just come out of the woodwork and be, the cliche, the guy you need.
Yeah.
So that's what makes these formats fun and also what makes them frustrating at the same time.
Yeah. And, he definitely showed the guy you need potential. Like, even if
and that was always the thesis too. Right. It's like in one playoff week, this guy does things that you want. It's really that simple. He spikes like crazy. He has power. He has speed. It's what you want. And I just kind of naw waved that because I thought, that argument could also work the other way. He could also be the guy you don't need. And I don't know about his advance rates. And both those things in my face. So yeah, big story of the season, Ellie. And I would be surprised if he wasn't like a 1-2 turn pick next year, maybe even higher.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because the team sort of fell out around him too. Like we had a bigger expectation for the Reds offense.
Yeah.
So I imagine, they get a little bit better together next year, make some improvements, and he has even better scoring opportunities.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, definitely in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, we don't have advanced rate data yet. In a little bit, we are going to take a look at total points scored in the regular season. But I think the other guy that the one that sticks in my craw is Jarren Duran. That was a guy who I put him on the cover here for a reason. Like, you can probably find a tweet of me saying I don't think Jarren Duran's gonna, is he gonna be a leadoff hitter the entire season? I did not see any of this in his range of outcomes. And as far as points to ADP, he might be the best, regular season draft pick out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I wasn't more on this guy. I'm really trying to find a Duran team. Like, do you remember what his ADP was? Because that's what I'm trying to see. Because it was late.
Well, let's get into it here. I do have our friend.
Perfect.
I do have this. Scroll up the top here on Twitter at Tiston Onion. No, it's some combination of Detroit, Michigan sports teams that I don't know how to pronounce.
Oh, is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah. So thanks to him for putting together this tool. He's also maybe working on something a little bit more interesting too on regular season data that should have him on next week. So we'll be talking a little bit more with him about this and some other stuff that he started to look at already. But this is a tool. If you haven't seen it, I'll put the link to it in the description here. But this is the top scores in the Dinger. This has 2 categories. We're not going to really get into the weekly data tonight, but that shows you each week, each player, their scoring. But the main app here is total scoring, ADP, position, all that. So let's filter out pitcher for now and go full screen here. So closing ADP on Jarren Duran was 114, which actually is higher than I expected.
Yeah, me too. But it makes me feel less bad about it. But man, that really surprises me that I did not have a lot of Jarren Duran, man. Like I'm trying to I want to pull up here exactly how much I did have. But yeah, I mean, he had a 120 WRC plus in 2023. I'm just really surprised that I did not have. Yeah, I had like 2% Jarren Duran. So I think what was going on was like around that range. I think there was a lot of pitching that I liked, and I was going pitcher there. I was going infield there, and thinking about finishing my outfield later in drafts with Henry Davis and Sal Frelick and Matt
Matt
Wallner.
Wallner, yeah.
That was like my big plan this season was to just like load up in the middle rounds on everybody else, knowing I could get those guys at the end, thinking that it would be just fine. And then I'm missing out on guys like Jaron Duran, who like quickly became my favorite player this season. He's awesome, and yeah, man. Next year, he's a second round pick next year, I think.
That could be. I hadn't really placed him yet. Next year, I'll have to think about that. But
Yeah, that was just like a snap reaction, just thinking about what this guy's done. I mean, just the extra bases. He's just an extra base machine.
Yeah.
Stolen bases on top of it. Good park, and like I'm just shocked on the Red Sox as a whole on how good that they've been this season. Easily my biggest surprise of the year is just this Red Sox team in general, just being much better than anybody expected.
Yeah. I think I'd put them up there with, as far as biggest surprises. Yeah, they got to be there. Maybe disappointing one would be biggest surprise is Tampa Bay. Just thinking off.
And the Rangers. Yeah, Rangers had a win total that wasn't in the 90s, but still like very much underperformed.
And another surprise, Arizona is actually performing better than, I kind of expected I expected the Ranger fall off for Arizona this year, and
they started off kind of slow too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're 11 games over 500, and Montgomery's throwing a decent game tonight. So yeah, things are coming together for them. That was a really smart move to pick up Josh Bell off waivers, help with Christian Walker while he's down, and then he's so good from the left side of the plate, and they could really use that extra help whenever they're facing righties. That it's just makes all the sense in the world.
Just every time you write off Josh Bell,
I know
he finds another act.
Why nobody wants this guy? He's not bad.
He was though. I don't know. Yeah.
Bad part, but yeah.
Yeah. So I was not on Durant at all, and I don't feel surprised that I missed on him because I made a choice because I really didn't love what I saw. I didn't know that, he had some injury stuff last year. I didn't know if the upside was there and the good stuff was repeatable for a full season. But again, he proved me totally wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna have buyer's remorse big time next season, and I should have a large percentage of my portfolio dedicated to Duran. If he's gonna continue to hit lead off for them, and he's just been awesome, man. He's a very fun player.
Yeah. That was really it. I didn't know that he was going to be even in the lineup against lefties, much less continuing to lead off. And that was where I was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So yeah, a couple of guys on here that, talking about getting wrong, a couple of guys that I was buying in on was Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, and really, if you take a take like a look at ADPs, so you got this upper echelon of outfielders that were all first round: Soto, Judge, Ohtani.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can kind of put together your super team here just on this first screen that really improved your advancements. If you got one of those three guys and then got like a Gunnar Ellie combo and then just slapped on Duran or Ozuna, you can make that team fairly easy with these ADPs.
Yeah.
So that's where I think
it's just kind of funny how that works out, right? I mean, it's purely just like the way that the market is it's just kind of funny the way that things line up like that. Like, oh, this player just happens to be picked in the fourth round a lot, or the fifth round rather, a lot with like Aaron Judge. I guess you could say fourth, like the 4 or 5 turn at that left side of the board where these studs are. and he just so happens to be like, for example, Marcelo Ozuna, like the 7th highest scoring player in the Dinger. Like it just makes those teams even stronger. Like obvious point, but like that's kind of random. That's just like, like it's just like very random. And so it explains why like I have 20% Judge in the finals right now, is because like on that side of the board there was like a lot of good picks that lined up with that. Also, Aaron Judge was amazing this season. Like let's not like put that to the side either. But it is just kind of funny, like the when we look at advanced rate data, it's so noisy because it's like, who were you, like what umbrella were you under? Like we see it all the time in NFL where players that scored 0 points have like 20% advance rates. Like, how is this possible? Well, they're like, they could be a stack partner, they're or like sharp players like this player and built
Yeah.
good teams around them. Like it's just, it's very noisy, but looking at it like this is very eye opening and just kind of funny.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Billy Jones, has had the ultimate regular season team that kind of
Yeah.
he put the, I can't remember how it was, but he had he had Lindor on, he had like a Mets stack on there. I
Mm.
think Lindor's there. I don't think Nimmo's up here in the top 25. And
How
yeah,
about Vlad cracking the top 20 there? I mean, he didn't start off very hot, and yeah, that was a good conversation early, like in the preseason we had with Cardi, where I'm like, what's up with this Vlad stuff, man? Like why are you what are you doing here? And so that's a nice little dub for our good personal friend Derek Cardi. But yeah, look no further than one pick down to find our next like huge hit
yeah.
in the draft season, and Brent Rooker, man, holy cow.
When I see Rooker and Duran with these point totals and their ADPs, like I don't know how I advanced any team. I'm happy that I advanced any teams, because
Yeah,
talk about misses. Brent Rooker is another big miss for me this year,
2%.
and it it's a very similar thing. Well, it's a different thing. It's the older breakout,
Right.
and I get why he was the guy being drafted from Oakland, and I get why people were on him, the upside case, but I felt like people were ignoring the second half of the season for him last year. And again, totally proven wrong. He comes out and just puts up, for his price, a monster season.
Insane numbers. 168 WRC plus. And that number's so big because he plays in Oakland. Not to take away from his season, but he has an OPS over 900. To make it more transferable and easier to digest. So I mean, those are great numbers. But yeah, I mean, dude, it was the late breakout, and I was not in on that either. Like I said, I had 2% Brent Rooker, but for a 168 ADP. I mean, it does look pretty silly in hindsight, right? It's like, big power guy. Um, what do you have to lose at that ADP? Not much. So to be in on Brent Rooker was a very profitable venture for those who were.
Yeah, and I think actually, I was not on him generally as an archetype of a player, but also again, something you mentioned earlier was that area I was filling in pitchers, and I was
Mm-hmm.
grabbing pitchers, infielders there, and maybe tacking one outfielder on in 19th, 20th round. So the definitely need to think about uh, the sameness of my structures, and players that you might miss because of that. We talked a lot about like the Paul Goldschmidt year,
Mm-hmm.
where he was going, in the 60s, 70s, and had another awesome season after everybody had kind of written him off again. And there's more pockets that I'm personally missing in my sticking to certain structures, as far as getting types of players in different places.
Yeah, I tried to mix up my textures of teams quite a bit, and that involved me getting 10% Strider and 10% Garrett Cole this season, and obviously like that was no bueno, but there's no takeaway from that. It's just okay, like it happens, but I guess at the same time, part of the reason why we didn't want to take pitchers very early is because of the injury risk. That was also like a very big part of it. But you can't just not take any pitchers. But I know we're not on that conversation as a whole yet. But I really do think we're going to see like a very very stark change in the landscape as far as when the first pitcher is off the board in drafts. And I think
Yeah.
it might be the third round next year. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get into pitcher in a little bit, but I don't know who would be the
Paul Skeens.
guy. Oh, sure. Yes. Skeens. Sorry.
No, no offense taken. No offense taken. But just the
Yes.
hype. Not even. I mean, obviously, I think he's a great pitcher, but like, he's a star, and it's kind of funny because he has no personality really. But like, but people just love the guy. Like, it's crazy.
He has crafted a brand. He's the millennial pitcher for a reason.
Yeah,
He knew how to
you're
craft.
right.
He has crafted an online brand around himself and his lovely girlfriend. Should we talk about Jurickson Profar? I still don't believe in Jurickson Profar. He's still hitting, but
Yeah.
I don't think.
I don't really have any like takeaways there. Right? I mean, like the dude was hardly drafted, right? The 239 ADP indicates that he was hardly ever drafted. Didn't have a good season last year in his age 30 season. Had a good season age 29. Didn't have a good season age 28. Had a good season age 27. So it's just like an every other year guy. It's so weird. I can't imagine having much of him next year because he's going to be in that range where he's drafted all the time.
Yeah.
I think he's a free agent next year, so maybe that might like depress his value. But yeah, I mean, good for him though. I mean, it's 154 WRC plus. I mean, you can't. Who had that in their range of outcomes?
No one. Yeah, I mean, you can tell by his ADP. Nobody drafted him.
Exactly.
Definitely a guy I don't feel as bad as missing out on as Brett Rooker. Would it be nice to have been in on him? Absolutely. But
so much leverage.
I don't know how any point I would have got onto him, which then brings up the question: are we just ignoring, or is there a reason to draft players that don't make sense? Are we taking to a fifth level of complexity?
Yeah, that is like, I mean, that is a very fair question. Like, should we be drafting guys that don't make sense? The problem is like, who's the guy to draft?
Right.
How do we make it not random? And you just and I just don't think that you do. What would be the case, the hindsight case for Jurickson Profar, results aside? I guess should we have known he was going to get everyday plate appearances?
So we knew that Padres didn't have an outfield outside of Tatis.
Correct. It was Merrill.
Yeah, and that's only in the spring because he was not an outfielder in the minors. So that was just in the spring they started playing him there, and he stuck. So we saw that. I forget what time of year they brought Profar in, but really, if you looked at their depth chart, like there was a place there for someone. And in this case, as Merrill is, continuing to be fairly good. He's not on this list, but there was two holes there for players to step into.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we missed on the plate appearance opportunity, but I mean, the dude was in Coors Field last year and did nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a perfect storm of reverse FUD. I can't even. I can't put a finger on it. So no, I think that's just like a fair L, like by everybody. Like you said, ADP. Like if he had an ADP of like 200, like what did I miss
Right.
that most of the people saw?
Yeah. Let's see. We got another surprise here. Brenton Doyle. I'm kind of skipping over the guys. I mean, Matt Chapman, kind of a surprise that he's here. He is always projected well in the bat.
Yeah,
He's definitely a Statcast darling.
right.
So I'm not like super surprised by where he's at, but Brenton Doyle, I think we should talk about,
Yes.
who is the player everyone wanted Nolan Jones to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
And 233. So again, barely drafted. And does it come down to, did we miss the opportunity there in Colorado outfield? For me, because he was not a player ever on my radar.
I have a feeling he's going to be overdrafted next season.
Okay.
He's somebody that, maybe I'll get my 8.333% because he's in Coors Field and he had a great season in 2024. And he has good minor league numbers. Let's not doubt that. But we had a 430 plate appearance sample last year, and the dude struck out 35% of the time, slugged 340. Like it was abysmal, and that was over a large sample. The only saving grace was like they can't take him out of the game because his defense is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was really it. It's like they have no choice but to keep him in the lineup. Yeah, dude, I can't blame myself for not getting to Brenton Doyle. Like I would have had to force myself to click him like on stream or something as a bit, because the 43 WRC plus is just a bridge too far for me. But 233 is higher than 239, so there were believers.
Yeah, and I think it was a Coors play. I don't, people saw a guy
Had to
with
be.
minor league power. I was going too deep into the Hunter Goodman category on Colorado and rounding out
And
my
I don't even think that's bad.
I was doing a lot of Tovar, McMahon,
Mm-hmm.
Goodman sort of infield stacks, and I never got to Doyle. His projection was bad. So definitely, I was going based off of his projections there. But I do think he's, as long as he doesn't get too much steam, I think he's worth considering again next year. I think he's proven that he has
He's
it.
going to be very interesting to see where he ends up ADP wise when things get stable. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, and I haven't even started looking at rosters or anything for next year to, maybe this is a episode, these holes, these roster holes that maybe we can
Yeah.
focus on next year and try and dig a little bit deeper, because at this point I feel like the field has a pretty good baseline on MLB best ball. I think there's still and you ask hardcore roto people, there's still people that us common best ball guys are misevaluating or not giving quite enough credit to. But I think the field has, come together into a pretty decent, smart, general idea of how to draft teams.
Yeah, we have like when it comes to best ball scoring, it is just like different, right? I think drafting more just pure explosiveness, I think can make sense, but then you miss out on your Stephen Kwans as well, who like profiles as a compiler, but has some really strong spike weeks involved in there. But even though we don't see him, I think he missed a little bit of time, so that might be why.
Oh yeah, he did. You're right.
Because we're obviously looking at total points here, but I mean this is key for advancing, obviously. But I mean he's slugging 480. Like how's that for a compiler? I'll take it. I mean, what's he going to select next year? Probably not 480,
Yeah.
but that plays, man, in a position where we are not sure where our points are going to come from. That plays.
Yeah, especially when you're pairing him with the consistency of Jose Ramirez with the upside of Josh Naylor.
Hmm.
We did, Andres Jimenez really didn't really pan out this year as he'd had last year in terms of
Hmm.
that Guardian stack. But yeah, definitely an interesting guy. But the thing with him is that if there's we already brought up Eno Saris. He wrote, or I think he wrote, no, or was it Mike Pietrello? Somebody, yeah, Pietrello wrote the the in depth look that I read on Quan about going to pulled power and trying to pull the ball to increase his power numbers, and that I think is a really interesting. I don't know where I land on it.
Hmm.
I've tried to form this thought because being such a big you know snob projection snob sometimes in the bad X, and it's reliant on the statcast stuff. I've I've never been in on these pulled power guys, Arenado, Isaac Paredes,
Hmm.
Isak, who's one of your favorites.
Hmm.
um so for me, I'm still not convinced that trying to get to this pulled power you can do consistently.
Right.
And the other problem I like, I don't know. I didn't play baseball. I don't want to like claim I know anything
Sure.
special. It's something I struggle with, but it's something I've always just kind of gone with, is that the consistency of these guys, and then when it's not there, what is that player? And
Yeah.
so in terms of Quan, he's still got the on base ability. So the adding the power, but we didn't know he was going to do this. So this is a
Right.
long way of saying that, like, I still think Quan was a bad pick.
Hmm. That's fair. I mean, that's. I didn't have a lot of Quan. I mean, like, I definitely let uh the crowd get to me on that. I mean, do I is this real? Do I have no Quan? Did I have no Quan at all?
Could be. I mean, he was not a
I
popular.
had I had no Quan at all.
Yeah.
Where was his ADP?
Did we find him?
If you can we control F on this bad boy?
Yeah. 87.
Okay. Well, I
But
mean, I'm just surprised because like I
I was
was a bit of a Quan like respecter. I'm just like I just I just you guys don't like him, but face it, he can play. But I guess I was more of a real life appreciation than fantasy. But I did have a lot of Naylor.
right. Uh, I had a lot of Jorge Soler and Manny Machado right here. Those guys that played most of the season and didn't even then scored the same amount of points. So uh, definitely the results were not there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I guess that is another off-season conversation to have. Um, these guys. Obviously, we didn't know Quan was going to change his approach at the plate, but like let's say that we did know, and before before spring started, or as spring started, he said he just mentioned in an interview, "Yeah, I'm working on pulled power this year."
Yeah.
Like when which of those guys? Because everybody's working on something. Like,
Hmm.
how do we filter these things? Another thing this is I struggle with, like, how do we filter this? How do we filter the guys that go to Driveline? The Ty France, like, is he back? He went to Driveline. You know, JP Crawford. He had his one season after Driveline, and he's
Yeah.
been hurt this year, and but hasn't exactly been there. So it is an interesting thing that I struggle with in terms of guys changing stuff. And how do you predict, or how do you try to draft that with that information in mind?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would have gotten to more Quan just because of that. Like if Luis Ariz tells us like, "Hey, I'm doing that too. Like I'm working on my pulled power as well." Who's who's given Luis Ariz like a huge bump
Yeah.
because of that? I mean, not many, right? I mean, it's I think that the process that you use is fine and sound. Like I do think that you're in tune enough with this stuff that you don't have to like really worry about that. And I think that you do need to be careful reading too much into certain narratives for sure. I mean, on the other end of that coin, right? With pulled power is Key Brian Hayes. I saw Key Brian Hayes spray chart and I saw him play a lot last year. I saw pulled power with Key Brian. I was like, oh my gosh, he never did this before. Now he's doing it. This is what we wanted. He could hit the ball hard. He just needed to pull it. And if he's pulling the ball and he's pulling fly balls, he could slug 450. He could have 15 home runs in a season. He could have a really nice year paired with some amazing defense. And I wasn't alone in that. He had a 155 ADP. I mean, that talk about a swing and a miss, no pun intended. I mean, he doesn't even strike out that much, but 66 WRC plus. He's not even slugging 300. And we saw good things last year. There were signs that he was a 101 WRC plus player, a 3.2 WAR player last year. There were reasons to believe that this kid was turning it around, and he looks completely lost now. So, like, just an example, like if you were going to look at batted ball data, look at the pulled fly ball stuff, it doesn't always carry over. So, I guess just a bit of a cautionary tale. But he did outscore Ronald Acuna, so there's that.
I was going to make that same joke. At least he outscored
Better picked Acuna by like 2 fucking fantasy points.
And Luis Robert.
Oh, wow.
But he did not outscore Ahmed Rosario.
RIP.
Any other infielders you want to look at here before we move to pitchers?
No, let's go.
Hitters.
No. I mean, no. I'm just like thinking about the playoffs right now, and this is like a cumulative conversation. So
Yeah.
no.
Right. All right, so we'll switch over to pitchers here. Let this app refresh, and of course, everybody on top that we expected. No one on top. I mean,
is this not just the poster? Like, this is the screen grab for zero pitcher, is it not? Like,
oh yeah,
just look at these names.
Yeah, I think Dylan Cease earns the Blake Snell Award for being the most Blake Snell this year. Going from, this guy, I just see those parallel. This guy that everybody is afraid of because of the walks.
Great award.
Because of the inconsistency. And then last year we had Blake Snell just smash. And Dylan Cease, just, I mean, I don't think he smashed, but because I feel like Blake Snell was a little bit later, maybe not later.
Blake Snell was a second half like stud last year. Like he won Cy Young, but he in our second half contest, he was like a 100 ADP or like higher, and it was just like automatic. Like Blake Snell is so undervalued, and then he ended up getting to like the like fourth round in that contest. So no, I mean that is a really good comparison. Like Cease had a lot of the same concerns we had with Blake Snell. The primary concern for most of this draft season was he's on the White Sox. And then he got traded and we did not give him a big enough boost. I mean, that was a big time reason, in my opinion. I mean, he's not, his innings are fine. He's not getting traded in the middle of the season. He's getting wins. Like those wins matter. And he's just a great pitcher. He's going to be expensive next year, but deservingly so.
Yeah. Scooble up there at the top, who I think you can you could see a future, or you could see the future where he was the top guy for this year. But you had to look around the inconsistency of his career, the small sample of dominance that he had last season. But that, like, within that dominance, you saw this outcome for the season.
Absolutely. And what I think is like right now, or looking at these results, this season was like a huge dub for the like rose colored glasses bros. Like it's like that bus meme. You got the sad guy on the bus looking at the rocks. It's like, oh, but like he's been hurt all the time, and this was me. Like he's been hurt. We haven't really
Yeah.
seen like enough of the dominance over time. And then like the other guy he's smiling and he's like he throws fast. He's a lefty, or he's got that dog in him. It's just like, and you can say that about Ellie. There's a lot of like very just like don't overthink it. These guys are explosive. This is what matters. And those guys had success in best ball. It's really kind of made me think a lot more about like some of the tendencies that I have in my draft style to play it safe, maybe a little too much.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Chris Sale is another same. Like, what if he's healthy this year? What if we put on those glasses?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? He was healthy this year and he was dominant.
So yeah, it's just so good. I mean, I mean, I knew he was good. I didn't realize he was the third best pitcher by fantasy points this year. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was a guy that I was a year too early on. I
You
was
were.
all over him the previous year. Guy I was not too early on, the guy I was on was Seth Lugo this year, which was not, this was not the outcome I anticipated. I wanted the safe pitcher there in
Yeah.
Seth Lugo.
Thought we would just get a bunch of innings. Didn't think we would get the stellar results that he has put together. But I mean, him and Reagan's are a big part of why Casey's a good story this year. That was I did not have enough Lugo at all. That was a big miss by me. I was pretty much done at pitcher at that point, and I wasn't sure what his like weekly ceiling would be. And even if he doesn't, like because he was a pick 230, you don't even like if he doesn't do anything in the playoffs, for example, like that doesn't mean like he was still a good pick. He was still somebody that you would have wished that you had on your roster, like 100%.
Yeah.
So, um,
I
yeah,
I do think that not taking Seth Lugo could have been correct. If you take a look at his underlying stuff, it does not match the results that he has had this year. So there is definitely the mirror universe where he was just the consistent guy that filled in here or there. He wasn't a high scorer on many weeks, and like you said, when you're taking him that late, like you don't need him to do this. You just need him to
no,
score. And even in the playoffs, if you have two dominant double start guys and you have a one start Seth Lugo where he puts up 20 points because the rest of your team's hurt or a bunch of your pitchers are hurt, that's still good.
yeah, and just to take the discussion back to pitchers as a whole. I mean, obviously there's some aces on here, some SP1s, if you will. The same time, man, like Tanner Halleck's down here. Crochet was an explosive pitcher. He does not fit the profile of a late pick of being an innings eater, but he's also like doing nothing for you right now. Where like Lugo can still earn you a quality start and a win, Crochet cannot. But he's like a rare case in my opinion. Like we have this like this bearish outlook on pitchers on bad teams, and I think he was a good risk this season because our playoffs are pushed up 2 weeks compared to last year. Like we're already in the best ball playoffs, and I think that that's great. I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy that it is that way because, I mean, the Crochet stuff was tough. I mean, he was a risky pick as it was. It's his first year starting. It's his first year really stretched out like this. But for the innings to get ramped down as quickly and as harshly as they were was like a real bummer for the few people who were taking their shots on Crochet. But again, like you can't. It's hard to like say with a straight face or like without any nuance that Garrett Crochet was a bad pick. He was underowned and put up some monster weeks when he was pitching. So, it's tough, man. This game of best ball.
Yeah, I think you're right on there with when we analyze young pitchers, we're looking at the innings, and maybe this year with the few weeks shorter regular season, maybe we need to downplay that more than we had in the past. You know, the that's always the thing with them is when are they going to get their innings and where does it land in the season, and maybe just like not trying to predict that and saying I'm taking this guy because he's going to land in the right or in a valuable part of the season. Same thing with Paul Skeens. He's the opposite. He's the guy that you want in the playoffs now, where you
Right.
want Crochet as that advancer and you want Skeens in the playoffs, because his innings came now. He
Mm-hmm.
came a little bit later. So, maybe with these young guys, we just say they're good pitchers, so they're going to contribute when they contribute, and not being not so wary on that. I don't. That's going to be a hard thing for me to not do. But
Mm-hmm.
when you put it in context of the whole field, the pitching position as a whole, like everybody misses time some point in the season. It's just
Mm-hmm.
how much for the most part.
Exactly.
Like, there's not, most of these guys up at the top are up at the top because they didn't miss any time in that scoring period. But, already, you know,
I think a fun exercise on this would be um, comparing pitching cumulative points to their points per game, and looking at the comparing the two, and also looking at innings pitched along with like their K per nine or K percentage. And I mean, we already know that Ks are important, but also like wins and quality starts and innings pitched are important as well. But like, I'm looking at Ranger Suarez down here who has missed time. He just started to miss time, but you know, Cy Young favorite for a while.
yeah,
A lot of innings pitched, but he's still like down here. Like he's not up toward the upper echelon. It's just interesting, and I really do think that the field is going to take this like pitcher devaluation or depreciation, whatever you want to call it. I don't think they're going to take it too far, but we are going to notice it, and it is going to be tough to grapple with, in my opinion.
yeah. I think that's going to be the biggest change. Yeah, you said it already, but I think between this year and next draft season, that's going to be the biggest change. And the vocal majority is zero pitcher.
Right.
Like people are talking about zero pitcher, based on this season.
And it honestly, and it makes a lot of sense. Uh, it just does. I mean, it's the two start weeks are, when it comes down to when the money is won, like that's what you want. You want two start weeks for these pitchers. And I don't, there's been talk about, a change in the playoff format to a potential sprint style. I mean, does that even change the benefit of a two start week like that? Like it still matters. So I
Yeah,
don't know what there is to do about it just is what it is.
yeah. I think I think the idea that I heard someone say that I liked the best was actually, still the 2 week playoffs, but pitchers would. I don't know if they could do this. The pitcher scores accumulate both weeks, but hitters reset after a week.
I would like that.
Because I do like, I feel like
that would be smart.
I feel like that still lets us have that excitement of the game in the explosive playoff week guys, and makes the format stand out for hitters, but then smooths over a little bit. You have more guys getting 2 starts.
Yeah, you're more likely to start that 2-start week pitcher, but it is a less of an advantage.
Yeah. So to me, that's the most interesting idea that I heard.
Fingers crossed that there's a way to. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I also do like consistently playing the same game year over year, because I feel like I don't know, maybe it's worse because you want to be able to adapt quicker than the field in a new game. But I don't know, I like the consistency.
No, that is a very good point. That I mean, this is, I guess, just because 2-start weeks are important doesn't mean that baseball best ball is solved. It absolutely is not, and I don't think can be. I mean, it's just the randomness is what makes it so fun and such a chase, and is what keeps it fresh.
Yeah, and I think that's the excitement. It's hard to remember the playoffs when you're not in the playoffs as you build your teams.
Yes.
But it is what is exciting to me about the game, compared to playing season long, where I'm trying to make incremental moves the whole season. No, now I'm in the exciting part, especially because the baseball season is so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a refresh, gets my excitement back.
Right.
I'm watching more games than I had the last couple of weeks, because I've got my playoff guys going.
Looking back at this list, man, just one more name that I'm seeing here that is just baffling to me is I recognize all these names. I think all these names are good pitchers, and no offense to this guy I'm about to say, but Jake Irvin.
I was gonna say, it's okay if you say I don't think Jake Irvin is a good pitcher.
I mean, whoa. I mean, did he just pitch way more than I thought this year?
No, he was really good until he got hurt. He was.
I mean, he also has 139 innings too. I mean, that's definitely a good amount.
Oh, okay.
But no, you're not wrong. I mean, a 4 ERA, no, he was pretty solid.
He was, yeah, definitely a surprise. He's
10th in the league in innings pitched as well.
Right, and he got an ADP of 241. He was even less drafted than Ronel Blanca, who I'd never heard of prior to this season.
No, never in my life.
So that was a name I was never going to get to. But otherwise, I mean, I think the names make sense. You see the names that the consistent guys, like a Carlos Rodon, who's here, who you didn't love paying 104 ADP for because of the health risk, the skills risk, and we've even seen him be bad, but he's here, and it really speaks to building your pitching staff from throughout ADPs, just because you can get these consistent guys all over.
Do you know this year? I mean, you don't have to be exact, but were you more how many pitchers do you think on average you threw in a team that you drafted this year?
7.
Mostly 7.
Yep.
You think you'll do that again next year?
Yeah. I don't see any reason to go either direction. It just, I want to accept the argument of going lower and just trying to hit on a team, because you look at these names, and Tyler Anderson, Brady Singer, these names don't matter.
Yeah.
These guys that contributed fairly well throughout the regular season. So if I just take 6 random pitchers and then I really focus on the hitters, maybe I get lucky. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me being too medium in my risk. But no, I'm pretty happy with that 7.
Yeah, no, 7 was my most popular, and it will be again next year. But I will probably uh, do less 7 and throw some more 8 pitcher teams in the mix, and dedicate less draft capital to those pitching teams. But yeah, I did mostly 7 this year. I do have some 6 pitcher teams that are doing well right now in the playoffs, but we will see like what that ends up like finishing with, because yeah, it's at the end of the day, it is like a risk tolerance thing. 6 pitchers is riskier, but if you are doing it with like the correct draft capital, I think it makes sense. And you are putting yourself obviously like at risk for either injury or not having the 2-start guy that you need in the playoffs to potentially uh you know lose out on a team. And it's just a very fun uh thing to think about. And man, this already has me excited to draft more best baseball
We
teams.
we still got playoff contests to go here,
That's
so
true. We still have the pennant. Yeah, that's right.
should open at some point pretty soon, I imagine.
I would think so.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely excited for that. I feel like I'm going to be really boring next year in terms of what I do differently in terms of structure. Like
Okay.
uh the to me this year has really made me feel like you can get players all over. Like I don't feel like obviously the outfield early still grab a couple of those, but from there I just want to be I want to distribute my picks. I don't know. That's really boring thing to say. Like I
Oh.
can't see like a secret to
So
roster
do you think you'll be a flatter exposure player next year?
No,
Okay.
yeah, that's just not as fun.
Yeah, yeah, no.
And
I think too, because baseball is less liquid, just
right,
lack of a better term. Um, when you have your edge, you should hammer it. You
yeah.
should absolutely hammer it.
If I was a 150 guy, which I got to 88 dingers. If I was a 150 guy, I would probably be flatter, but
Which makes sense.
with doing the 60 to 80 per contest that I usually do, like I just kind of want to be a little more condensed. And
And that makes total sense.
um, one of my biggest stands for a while was Trevor Story, and that really had no negative impact really on my results. I don't feel like that was a huge
Man, what should have been? What could have been? That's a bummer.
yeah. But yeah, so we'll be back here, stacking dingers sort of in holding pattern. We'll be back next week. I think, Aiden's going to join me. I don't know who else we can grab. We're going to talk a little more advancement data, and we'll talk the first 2 playoff weeks. And then, we'll probably cover some more playoff week stuff in the future, and we'll hit some playoff stuff. But we're still here. We haven't disappeared. We'll be, we're starting to put plans in for next year. And along those lines, if you have any feedback on, content that we, topics, people to get on here, if you want to come on here, you got something to say, reach out, hit the DMs, and we're excited for next year already. So
I know. Yeah, yeah. No, we appreciate everybody that's listening to this. Like you said, Sheep, and I'm really excited to listen to this conversation with Aiden next week. That'll be a lot of fun.
all right. So for Nez and myself, enjoy the playoffs here.